Hello, this is Astro Babble, where we babble about astrology. I'm Lynda from Scullywag Astrology,
I'm Donna from Donna B Astrology.
and today we're talking about the solar eclipse on October 25th, which will be at 2 degrees of Scorpio.
Nice.
Very
Eclipse season
interesting.
is always it always amps up the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I used my information from Bernadette Brady's book. Um, and the solar eclipse, if it happens within 18 degrees of that node, it's going to be a solar eclipse. If it's less than 9 degrees, it'll be a total solar eclipse. And if it's between 9 and 11, it possibly could be a total solar eclipse. So that's how they work, is the orb on how far it is away from the node. So
Yeah.
that's going to be what we're looking at. Okay, so it could possibly be in the realm of possibly being a total solar eclipse, but they're calling this one a partial solar eclipse
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
some reason. Because if it's between 9 and 11, it could be either.
Yeah. hmm Yeah, and if you want to know more about the nodes and what the nodes actually are and how that actually works out, when we did the solar eclipse episode, we went into that. There's a whole section about it, which is quite detailed. So we'll put a link to that and you can check that out. And yeah, this solar eclipse is going to be very interesting because, as we also tell you more about in the solar eclipse episode, they kind of come in what are called families, Saros series or Saros cycles, and they link eclipses every 18 years. But this one is, I believe, 6 south, wasn't it?
So,
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. Where is it?
well, do you want me to read it or do you want
Yes.
me to
No,
just
no.
explain what's in it?
Read out what the Bible says about this eclipse.
Okay, this is per Bernadette Brady. The
Mhm.
Eclipse series is about being forceful and taking power. It has a manic flavor about it with great force or strength manifesting in the relationship area. Individuals experiencing this Saros series may experience sudden events like falling in or out of love or sudden sexual encounters. The individual may also exert a huge effort in some group activity. Now,
Yes.
in the eclipse uh, podcast that we had done earlier, if you can see the eclipse, it's more impactful for you.
Hmm. And we'll come to that in just a little minute too, because it's quite interesting. But how they kind of determine what the eclipses are like are by looking back in history and how, people have experienced them. But it's basically this eclipse Saros series started back in 1049 and it will run to 2293 because these they take about 1300 years to go from one pole to the other. And yeah, so very interesting. And at that original eclipse, that kind of set the tone. So yeah, but as Donna was saying, what was it? It's about being forceful and taking power. And we had a look at where this eclipse would be visible. So I'm going to share the screen. And what we have is at timeanddate.com, which is an absolutely brilliant website, has a lot of information about eclipses and lots of different things. This is the actual eclipse map. You can put in a location here, but it's going to be visible over most of Europe. And you can see here over a fair chunk of Russia. And this little marker here, I set that for Moscow. So that's where Moscow is. This darker orange area, which is covering parts of Russia, but also Kazakhstan, is where there's 100% of, it's not a total eclipse, so it's not like a total amount, but I suppose 100% of what is possibly visible during this eclipse will be in those areas. I just think it's really interesting that we're talking about taking from power. We're talking about new beginnings being amplified, and that Moscow is not that far from there. So I think it could be a really interesting time for what's been going on in Ukraine and Russia. Perhaps maybe something will happen with Putin. Maybe there will be a new leader there, perhaps. Who knows? But it will be interesting to see. Yeah. And we haven't had a really good look at the upcoming lunar eclipse, which is to do with endings, because the lunar eclipse is a full moon kind of amplified because it's got the nodes really close to it. And the nodes do tend to amplify, but you know, lunar eclipses are about endings. And just to harp on about our podcast that we did about the solar eclipse, we had a look for the solar eclipses at assassinations of American presidents. And if I remember correctly, quite a few of them were kind of in between eclipses. So, yeah. Anyway, but if you are watching this on YouTube or wherever, you can see this here. It's covering Norway, Sweden, Finland. Looks like parts of Germany, Romania, Ukraine, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan. And yeah, so very interesting. That Moscow, it's just outside that, maybe 50%, but still it's in that bullseye kind of zone, kind of radiating out a little bit.
Could even be 80%.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. So yeah, so actually I'll put the link to this map on in the description so people can go and have a look themselves.
Very cool.
So I'll stop sharing that, and I might
Astrology is just so interesting.
Oh, it is. And I'm going to bring up the chart for this this current eclipse. And yeah, it's eclipses always come in pairs.
So this one is going to happen on October 25th, and the pair to it is going to happen November 8th.
Yeah.
The Americans' election day.
Yes, so that should be interesting. Particularly with when we get there, you'll see that that one has Uranus, which has to do with sudden upsets and yeah, just really shock, surprising. Yeah, might be quite different to what a lot of people expect. But this is the one for the 25th of October. We've got the sun and moon together, which is what happens when we have a new moon. As we said, new moons are about new beginnings, new starts. Because it's so close to the lunar node, it is kind of amplified. This one is close to the south node, which can be a little bit more, not as positive. You know, it can be a little bit more problematic. But we've got lovely Venus, but you know, Venus is right here because the eclipse degree is at 2 degrees Scorpio and 0 minutes, and Venus is at 2 degrees Scorpio and 39 minutes. So that's really close.
Yeah, she has just left the heart of the sun, or
the cazimi, yeah.
That audience with the sun. So she's got her information and she's ready to move on and work.
Yeah.
Do what she needs to do.
Yeah, because with medieval astrologers, they would consider this was just out of the cazimi, as Donna was saying, but like a lot of Hellenistic people believe like we can give it a degree either side. So yeah, definitely well within that degree. So very interesting. It's a shame she's going to be in Scorpio because she's in detriment there. She's not comfortable because it's a sign ruled by Mars. And then opposite, we have the North Node with Uranus. So interesting.
It is.
And where is Mars?
It's Mars is up in Gemini.
Yeah. And at the degree it's going to station at, it's going to be, I think this is going to be a really full-on couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely looks that way. You know, but it's time of change. It's when, you know, Pluto's at its last few degrees, and as we were saying earlier, when Venus was with the sun, Venus is changing. Who was that? Maurice Fernandez from Kepler did a video, as well as Astrology Podcast did a video with Venus and the sun and how it's, it had a conjunction, in the air signs and
Yeah,
interesting times.
very
And
interesting.
all that is going to be pretty much, Uranus is still squaring Saturn at that time too.
And I mean that Uranus is going to become really important within the next couple of weeks when it's tightly conjunct the lunar eclipse. Yeah, that
Exactly.
Uranus Saturn square, kind of that push and pull, that tension between the old and the new, the established and the revolutionary. So could be some interesting times.
Because Uranus is about independence as well.
Yeah, eclipses come in pairs, so you know, particularly that in between period, probably not a good idea to make any sudden movements. You know, the energy of it, particularly if it's making contact with natal chart points or natal planets. And I've heard even if you kind of know your chart quite well, if you're involved with secondary progressions, even if it's making contact with secondary progressed planet, it is likely to be more impactful. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, so wherever Scorpio is in your chart could be quite significant, particularly if it's in
For
the
any of the fixed
areas.
signs.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius. Mm.
I think you'll feel more impactful. It'll definitely, you're gonna feel something happen if you are, a Scorpio or a Taurus rising. I think either one, because it's
Mm.
gonna be that opposition or right on it. If you are one of those, I think you're gonna feel it a little bit more than the rest of, society.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But if you got planets that are around, 2 degrees Scorpio, give or take, say a couple of degrees, yeah, probably quite strongly. Yeah, and if it's kind of making contacts to like a malefic like Mars or Saturn, it might be quite challenging. If it's making contact to say like Venus or Jupiter, a benefic, hopefully not as bad. Hopefully it may even be good, because it can be really easy to go, oh my God, the eclipses. But, sometimes they are showing good things. But we have a look at, what the Saros cycle is and, what that generally is reflective of. And then you can go back and have a look at what was happening 18 years ago for you. There could be a continuation of that theme. So I think that takes us back to what? 2004. Significant in 1914, 1932, 1950, 1968, 1986, 2004, 2022, and it will also be significant in 2040. Well, that's when it will happen. Yeah, so if those years mean anything to you, like, there was big events happening, particularly around about this time, because what happens is they move, I think it's about 10 degrees. If you're looking for like when it was last around, so that's 2004, it was at 21 Libra. So going from that, because there's 30 degrees to a sign, it is now in Scorpio. And for, people that are really into astrology listening to this, that might seem kind of really weird because we're not talking about how the eclipses progressed over the years. So like this year, we've been doing Taurus, Scorpio eclipses, and prior to this,
Mhm.
we were doing Sag and Gemini, and prior to that, we were doing Capricorn and Cancer. So they're kind of going backwards because the nodes appear to go backwards through the zodiac. But with the Saros series, they happen every 18 years and 10 or 11 days. So because it's linked to the sun and the moon, and the sun moves about a degree a day, so every 18 years, it's the same Saros cycle, but it's slowly moving 10 degrees each time. So yeah, I hope that makes sense because, Mercury and Pisces, we have trouble explaining things sometimes. But yeah, it's
Yes.
Very interesting.
It can be complicated. It's a huge, I mean, I believe Bernadette Brady wrote a book on the eclipse as well. Yeah, but
My
yeah,
very dog-eared
there's
book.
a lot of information. There's a lot of information. Yeah, they start off, and if you go to the video, I drew kind of like a quick picture of what,
Mm,
how they wrap around the earth and progress from the south to the north or the north to the south. So
yeah.
that's how they run.
And that's how, like we were talking about, this was 6 south. That means it started at the South Pole and it's going up to the north eventually over 1,300 years, or approximately 1,300 years. Well, shall
Yeah.
we have a look at,
So
oh, sorry, go on.
the regular horoscopes, because I have the moon mansion.
Oh, fantastic. Tell us
Of
about the moon mansion first.
Okay. It would be good to buy beasts or jewelry. It's good for besieging. So there's anybody who
Interesting.
wants to besiege.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might be a strategy that might work for um
Ukraine.
a country.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to take medicines. They'll work better.
Mm-hmm.
And love that you find will last. It is not good to build. Water travel will cause anxiety and sorrow. So
Oh,
those are the things that you may or may not want to do.
shall we do run through the horoscopes?
That would be a great idea because there is a lot of planetary movement. I think it's more of focus on the planets is not as many well, there are a lot of aspects, but there's a lot of just kind of shifting kind of stuff going on,
Yeah.
more so than I've seen in past months, where
Mm.
it's just everything's just shifting a little bit. Um, Maybe to get us used to this new pattern that's about to spring forth.
Yeah. It's just interesting though that the planet of forward motion and just kind of like, just do it and just energy and all that is going to be like, and having to
Yeah.
backtrack. And I mean, it's the ruler of this eclipse, so interesting.
Yeah, because it's basically just about stationing. I can't
Mm.
imagine that it's going very fast at all.
What are we down to?
13%
13%.
of its normal speed. Yeah, it's pretty much almost at a stop.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you want to do the first house or?
Sure. So if you are a Scorpio rising, this is going to be happening in your first house, and new moons are beginnings. So you with the South Node in there, you might not want to start a whole lot of things that involve accumulation, but beyond that, this is the house where you're concentrating on yourself. And so things that you are wanting to start, like, an education or, a new hairdo, just something that has to do with you and you alone is what this house and new moon's going to be about.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that with Venus conjunct that new moon slash solar eclipse, to associate with beauty and, appearances and yeah, I just, the first house is appearances and that and our health and vitality. Yeah, definitely.
And
Maybe a
air.
good time for a new wardrobe or a haircut or a makeover, or, because it's our health and vitality, maybe you're kind of like, well, I'm going to get fit. I want to,
Yeah.
look my best. So nice.
Venus is associated with air, so,
Oh,
and the
okay.
breath that we take. So that might be new.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And if you're a,
And well, Venus is a benefic. So
yes,
what happens should have a positive spin to it.
we would hope so. And if you are a Libra ascendant, this new moon slash solar eclipse is happening in your second house. So this is new beginnings or things coming to light regarding finances, your personal finances, your income, resources, things and people that help or assist you. So yeah, this could be quite positive. As Donna was saying, Venus is a benefic, and when Venus is in a house in your chart, sometimes you can expect good luck or gifts, or it might not be huge, it might not be like a lotto win or something, but it might be just maybe you get a nice gift at this time, or but yeah, this is nice. Maybe you kind of receive a bonus, or somebody gifts you something, or yeah, it's just a nice thing, I think. Yeah.
And then moving on, if you are a Virgo rising, this is going to happen in your third house. Um, for some reason, with the South Node in there too, this could also be a new beginning of things that are being taken away. Like if you are like maybe even changing a group your
Mhm.
community or something is, um, but it's going to have a positive spin with that Venus there. But this will have
Mm.
to do with community, or early education, that type of thing. Yeah, it's
Or siblings,
your
yeah.
siblings,
Mm.
your yeah, aunts, uncles, your kind of extended family, but not not you, but your siblings, your cousins, aunts, uncles. Something could be happening with them that would go around those kinds of themes.
Yeah.
Especially with that South Node in there, it's Ketu, and it usually reflects getting rid of things or
Yeah.
moving things out of your life to make room for new stuff. So it's kind of like it's both energies right there.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, because new moons are new beginnings, but then you've, like you said, you got the South Node there wanting to get rid of stuff. And what do they say? One door closes and another one opens, so
Exactly.
mhm.
That might be what we're all experiencing, reflected in whatever house that's happening in. So
Yeah. And if you are a Leo ascendant, this is happening in your fourth house. This is a house to do with our parents, our close family. It is our heritage and our home and living situation, and real estate matters. So this could be something to do with, it might be happening to your parents. It might be, they've got new beginnings, something new being developed. Could be, like Donna said, quite beneficial because you've got the Venus there. She's a benefic. She's under a little pressure at the moment because she is in a sign that she's not really strong in, but she's still a benefic, and she is, depending on your definition of Kazemi, potentially still Kazemi. So, but yeah, maybe, I could see parents maybe downsizing, they don't need the big house anymore. They downsize, they get rid of stuff they don't need, and maybe it's nicer and kind of easier for them to look after because it's not as big, and maybe not as such a big yard and similar things. But for other people it might be a new house, or a new place to live, or new living situation. Maybe there's a new person comes in or leaves. So yeah.
and then if you are a Cancer rising, this is going to be happening in your fifth house. And the fifth house has to do with your creativity part of you.
Mhm.
That also includes children. It also includes hobbies and things that you do for fun. So,
Yeah.
you might start a new hobby or have
Yeah.
children.
Or creative, like things like, creative writing, music, art, all that sort of stuff too. Yeah. And just
And
socializing.
especially with Venus in there,
Mm.
with that art. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely you know, a good time to start doing something when you've got that benefic. it's a good aspect for, and it's a good house. It's one of the favorable houses for, things to happen in your life if you're
Yeah.
a Cancer rising.
Well, you were talking about that, and I'm thinking, it's like you're almost being asked to almost kind of sacrifice something or to get rid of something. And then I was thinking, well, Mars, because Mars is associated with cutting. So it's like, yeah, you need to cut away or prune something so that, you can get those new shoots. So might be a little bit bittersweet.
Yeah, it's possible because that moon is squaring Pluto, right? Kind of a wide
Oh,
square.
wow. Yeah. Like we need more pressure.
If there wasn't enough of
Hmm.
those planets that are saying, hmm, something needs to change. That is definitely in the mix.
Wow. I'm just looking too, like they're actually in aversion to each other, but that Jupiter is at 0 degrees for Aries, and like it's the other Mars ruled sign. So yeah, it's making what's called an inconjunct to that, which can, you know, need adjustment in that in modern astrology. But yeah, interesting. And if you are a Gemini ascendant, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your sixth house. And the sixth house is the house of service. So this includes people in professions such as doctors, nurses, firefighters, people, that are of service to others. But yeah, it's also the house of illness. So something to be aware of. And it's also pets. So new beginnings, new starts can be amped up a little by that the fact that it is an eclipse, but because it is a south node eclipse, there is an element of decrease or maybe removing something first before, health. So it could be maybe for some people there's, just say you've got appendix, it's playing up and it needs to come out, if you can't keep it, because if it stays in there, it's going to, you could get sepsis and die. But if, it's taken out, then, you're quite fine. So maybe like personally, if I was a Gemini ascendant, if I kind of had some unusual aches and pains, I would be probably a little bit more diligent in getting that looked into, perhaps.
Yeah, because it's going to be new. It could even be a new, you know, health
Yeah,
issue that came up. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but it could also be that you're, in the northern hemisphere where I am, you might be cleaning the lawn for for your pet
Well, this is
because it's
true.
going to be covered in snow.
And I believe that's coming in early.
It is. It's remarkably earlier. I think north of us got it looks like about 9 or 10 inches. It was like a lot. It was like
Oh
way more than
my,
I
that's crazy.
was was prepared to look at this morning.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. Um, if Taurus is your rising sign, this is going to be happening in your seventh house, and this is the house of the other. And the other is a person identified as the one other person that you have a relationship with. It could be, your significant other. It could also be, a person that you're making an appointment with, like a doctor or a lawyer.
I was just thinking the hairdresser too, because Venus is
Right.
associated with
Yes.
hairdressing and that, and it's beauty and
Yes.
cutting. That would actually be a really good remediation for this, which is kind of like, okay, this is happening. How can I use this energy in a positive manner? Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Good
I'd be
point.
booking
Good
a
point.
hairdresser's appointment. Get a new.
Yeah. Maybe I'll schedule that.
Mm. Oh, well, oh, of course,
Yeah,
yeah,
that would
because
be
it's
a
a
really
Taurus.
good.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be a really, I am a Taurus rising. That's why she said that. But yeah, that would be a really good way to use those because that Mars that's trining that,
Mm.
in a wide trine, is about that cutting. And if
Mm.
you want to say Yay, Mars, I see you. I acknowledge you and try to incorporate that. You might even want to really change that up with the square to Pluto
Mm,
and completely change your hairstyle.
don't get it shaved, Donna. We don't need to
It
see
would
the
be
end of
very
the year.
difficult to go from long hair to shave, but some people do it.
Mm,
But yeah, that would be a manifestation of that, and that would be a good way to use that planet energy that is wanting to be used. Like Lynda had said, to mitigate,
mm.
that cutting and severing quality that
And
Mars is known
with the
for.
South Node kind of like lessening. So yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Mm, yeah, I think that would be a
absolutely.
really good way to do it.
Bravo. You get extra points for that one.
Well, my twins have got Taurus ascendants too, so I'm going to recommend that for both of them as well. And then
Right.
Aries ascendants. This is going to happen in your 8th house, which is the house of other people's money. So this is shared finances, resources. This is loans and debts. It's taxation, it's insurances and death. Maybe it's interesting because Venus in the 8th, we often look at that and think, oh, maybe you'll benefit through a partner, because the 8th is the second house from the partner. So, of course, as Donna was saying, for the 7th house, it's those one-on-one relationships, which can be close friends, or it can be, a doctor, somebody you're kind of actually consulting with, a client relationship. But it's also our romantic partners or business partners. So you could benefit through some way. Usually that would be what I would say when I see Venus in the 8th. You would usually expect to benefit somewhat, or maybe a loan comes through or something, but there's that South Node there. So maybe if it's a case of a loan or something, maybe you won't be approved for, you might have applied for X amount and they're kind of like, no, you can have Y. So I don't know how it would go in other manifestations of that. As in, well, yeah, it's inheritances as well. So maybe it's not as much as you expect. Or with that cutting, because it's ruled by Mars, maybe, somebody else has to be kind of taken into account. Maybe it's halved, or, you thought it was going to be 3 beneficiaries and now it's 4, or yeah.
Yeah. But still a positive spin of some kind with that Venus present
Yeah.
right there. Right on that. I mean, it is basically right on that eclipse.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
considered right on it when it's within 1 degree, and it is definitely
Mm,
less than a degree.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah, when Jupiter is also in a Mars ruled sign. So we got Mars ruling both the benefics at this time. and Mars is very, very slow at the moment. So, and he's just about to change direction. So it's going to be really interesting to find out what happens with these eclipses. So if you're listening to
yeah.
this and you kind of have a little, if you're happy to kind of share a little story, because I know that some people have been dropping, little things in the some of the comments, particularly on the little, because I cut most of these up into kind of like, the aspects that were coming up after this. But yeah, if you've got a story to tell about, what's happening to you at this eclipse, please, we'd love to hear it. So
Yeah.
feel free to let us know. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see what happens with the Aries rising people.
And then if Pisces is your rising sign, this is going to be happening in your 9th house. And this is going to be like new beginnings of higher education, maybe a legal theme, publishing as well. So if it's a legal thing, you don't want to be on the end where you're feeling the South Node, because chances are it's not probably going to go well for you. You might have
Yeah.
something taken away. So
Or
yeah,
maybe
if you're
with,
a Pisces.
Yeah, like we were saying, you got your benefic there. So maybe it's kind of a case, a bit like how I was describing for the Aries people. Maybe it's kind of like, maybe you win, but you just get nowhere near what you thought you were going to get. They might say, yeah, you win, but here's $1, which would be rather frustrating.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe you need to share it with somebody else, because that Mars ruling and it's cutting. Or maybe, particularly with Mars ruling, maybe it gets like the ruling gets reversed or something.
Or you have been really bad and now you're getting locked up and you are getting your house changed.
Well, that's a point. That's a very good point.
That is
Or house arrest.
crossing fingers.
Oh, goodness. And
Yeah.
if you are an Aquarius rising, this new moon solar eclipse is happening in your 10th house. So this is the house of, we quite often associate this with career, but it's also public reputation. It can be honors and rewards, but it's where we're very, very visible. So it's also the house of infamy. If you're kind of up to no good, yeah, this is kind of the house where it kind of becomes evident too. So yeah, new things coming to light, and hopefully good. This Venus is there, but she's ruled by Mars. It's with the South Node. Maybe you've been expecting that you're going to be honored or rewarded, or maybe it's something to do with work, like a new job or something. But perhaps there's just that little bit of, you are hoping for this, but it's not quite that much. It's just, there's that decrease with the South Node. So, oh,
Very interesting. And it could be it's that 10th house is the focus of it's the most northern house or the
yeah,
most seen house. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just hold on,
And you got that Saturn sitting in there. If Capricorn is your rising sign, this is going to happen in your 11th house, which is the house of hopes and dreams. So, a great time to either start a group, maybe get rid of one group so you can start another group. But yeah, that would be the type of things that would be going on. Your hopes and dreams, your groups and associations. This would be a new beginnings for those types of things,
Very
of
good.
groups and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Benefactors too, people that can
Ah,
assist you.
and Pluto seems to be telling you don't have too many groups.
Could be, could be.
Could be. There's some kind of change because Pluto seems to be catching my eye every once in a while on, as you're
Mhm.
spinning this wheel. And it seems to me that some houses are, some that aspect is sticking out sometimes larger than the other ones
Yeah, yeah,
or more prominent.
yeah. And
Especially
if
with Neptune and Mars. They're squaring.
yeah, well, see, that poor Mars, he's not only kind of, what is he at this time? He's at 13% of his usual speed, and he likes to rev it up and get going. He's just about to stop and backtrack, and then he's got that square to Neptune, which is kind of draining all that energy from him too. So, yeah.
And this is it's a harder time because what Mars went into Gemini, September 9th, and it's just been, it usually is only in a sign for like 6 weeks, and it's already been almost 8. It seems like it's been in there for a lot longer of a time. It's like I said, it goes around in a sign for about 6 weeks, and this time it's
Mm,
going to be in there for like 6 or 7 months, and
yeah.
that is a long time because it's went into the sign, and then it's got to go all the way to where it's almost about to station, and then it goes back all the way through that sign down to 8 degrees, and
Mm,
and then back through again. So it just is an incredibly long time to have Mars in a sign.
yeah, that's the point.
Very
And And going forward, I think that's something, yeah, we'll have to look at over the next couple of months. Like, not only where is the new moon and the full moon, but yeah, with Mars being there for so long, what houses it's actually impacting. So, like with Sagittarius ascendants, we have it in the 12th house, which is our undoing. And it's also things like places of confinement, like prisons and hospitals, or places of seclusion, like monasteries. So, yeah, but, as Donna was saying, we not only, this is about the solar eclipse, the new moon, but you don't have an aspect all by itself, completely dominating everything. There's lots going on. They're kind of, we can't just say, okay, let's pluck this solar eclipse out. There's other things happening. And yeah, that's a really good point about Mars being in that sign for so long. So that's probably something we should look at going forward. Yeah.
Well, and not only that, and it's very clear right now, but there's like a grand trine between Mercury in Libra, Saturn in Aquarius, and Mars in Gemini. They're all in air signs.
Mm.
You have two of the malefics,
Mm-hmm.
Mars and Saturn, as well aspecting Mercury. So it seems like a process is going to change for not really the better.
Yeah, because I mean, Mercury is usually like it can it's a real trickster, but it's like it kind of adapts itself to what other planets are around it. So with both the malefics contacting it, it's kind of like hanging out with bad associates. He's hanging out with the villains of the piece.
Well, it's just that Libra, Venus, I could call her Libra. Venus is she's more associated with the air now, or she will be soon.
Mm,
And that grand trine during this eclipse is all happening in air signs.
mm,
So that
mm.
is definitely something to take note of, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at that Saturn because Saturn's exalted in Libra too. So interesting, interesting.
But
But
it's in
anyway,
Aquarius.
oh yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I was saying like with Mercury in Libra, because Libra is the exaltation of Saturn. So that Saturn kind of feels a little bit of a obligation to look after Mercury a little bit, but he's still going to lead him astray, I reckon. But I'm a little bit biased about Saturn. Anyway, if you're a Sagittarius ascendant, this is happening in your 12th house. So new beginnings to do with those topics we were talking about. So it could be matters to do with self-defeating habits or escapism. That's one you like to use. That's the word you use for 12th house, isn't it, Donna? I like that.
Especially with the square between Neptune and Mars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
Mars is aspecting that too, that eclipse.
Mm, yeah, I wonder how we could use that positively.
Going away and writing a book, it
Mm-hmm.
gives you that drive, maybe writing it with another person,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
moving
because
to
you
a
got
cabin.
Mars in the seventh, and then you've got Saturn in the third. Actually, yeah, maybe another person as an editor, or somebody who's really good at editing that sort of stuff, or whatever you're working on. Yeah, maybe this, if you do have because this is the house of addictions and stuff like that as well. Maybe this could be indicative of, okay, you had a relapse, but you've got a really good sponsor or somebody that can stand up for you and kind of just be there. Saturn, I could see totally being that sort of thing. Um, yeah, that Venus with the solar eclipse does kind of give it a little bit of, it bonifies it a little bit, I think. But yeah, that south node there needs to be a decrease. And yeah, the ruler
Yeah.
in the
I mean, we
seventh.
all have them.
Oh
We
yeah,
all
for
have
sure, for sure.
decreases. I mean, we all need to not have, 30 shoes. You know,
Oh, you
we all
haven't met
need
my
to get
daughter.
rid of things.
Do you not have 30 shoes, Donna? You're a Taurus ascendant. Do you not have 30 shoes?
I do. But, you know, but we do have to get rid of things. We do. I keep telling myself,
My
darn it, I
daughter,
even bought earrings to help me.
one of my
But yeah,
daughters, the one of the Taurus ones, the Taurus ascendants. I don't know how many pairs of shoes she's got now, but yeah, she's got like 85 pairs or something. She's like 24, and she knows who Imelda Marcos is because that's what I call her. Who was very famously had a huge shoe collection. We
yeah.
found your Achilles heel, Donna.
You know what? Yeah, it's a
There's nothing wrong with that.
really bad habit. It really is because you can only wear one pair of shoes at a time.
Well, yeah,
When
but
I got married, I only had like two pair of shoes. My husband had like a gazillion. And then it seems like it has changed. Like,
oh goodness.
anyway,
You're just living
you
out
know,
your
that part of
ascendant.
that south node. What?
You're just living out your ascendant. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's is that what it is? Well, because you know, Tauruses, they stand for like a long time. They need good shoes. Yeah, that's what I tell myself. I need good shoes, good supportive shoes.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh goodness. But
Um,
yes, so that is the horoscopes for that. And you've got a stone for us, I believe, Donna.
I do. And this is a wonderful stone. It was first discovered or found in Japan. And this is called the chrysanthemum stone.
Very
And this stone is it was found in Japan. It's known as it's good for grounding, and it's known as a prosperity or the lucky stone. It's like black all the way on the outside. So you would get this rock, and then you would cut it in half, and that's what's inside. So how this forms is, you know, it was all probably, you know, in that, you know, climate, and then it had this, you know, this matrix around it, and then it just had nowhere to grow but like that. It's a really cool stone. I really like it. It helps people understand their inner potential.
Mhm.
It vibrates to your highest good, which is one of the reasons why I use it. And that was from the Book of Stones. Says by holding it is to recognize synchronicities that the universe is basically throwing at you. If you tell the universe you want something, this is the stone you use it for. I believe this is going to be a little bit closer to me. It has the life force, the vitality. This is also good for the uterus. It's good
Oh, nice.
for keeping making the vibration to where it needs to be, for helping, whether it's keeping it steady or taking away not taking away fibroids. It doesn't take things it doesn't actually physically do things.
Mhm.
It vibrates so that your body can manifest what it needs to. So it helps with fibroids. It helps with regulating cycles. It is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stone. And it's called the chrysanthemum stone, and you can see it. You can see why it's called the chrysanthemum stone,
Yeah, I was
because
wondering whether they were
that's
chrysanthemums behind you.
yeah. Well, they're mums. That's the closest thing I got. But yeah, that this is it is a wonderful stone. I have been using it for over a year, and it's got really good results with it. And I will have
Article.
I'll write up a little description of the things that it can do. It resonates with all the chakras. It's with the earth element. So on my website will be a blog about the chrysanthemum stone.
And we'll link to that in the article as well. Oh, not in the article, in the description. Do you want to just hold it up again too? Because I mean, what it just reminds me of, it just looks like, you know, somebody's pressed that flower Do you know what I mean? You know, people press the flowers, which is,
Yes,
probably obviously why they did it. It's very pretty though, isn't it?
it is. It's very unusual. I mean, and that's just how it,
Mm,
it's literally it would be a non, important rock, it looks like. But when you open it up, wow,
yeah, very
and
pretty.
those, from what I have been seeing, crystals grow like in shards, and this could be like anodulite or celestite. It could be one of this lighter color could be any, it could be one of 3 or 4 stones. The outside is like dolomite or but yeah, it's really an interesting stone on how it grows
Yeah,
and
interesting.
the energy. It just, if you, when you look at that and you see that blossoming, that
Mm.
and that's kind of what it does. It helps you blossom.
Well, it's radiating out too. It's
Yeah.
expansion and yeah,
Yeah. So
nice.
so I really like that. I am a November baby, so chrysanthemums and citrine and
Very
chrysanthemum
nice.
stone. I just I had to get it. I had to feel out what that energy was, and I am really glad I grabbed that stone.
Yeah, well, I was thinking too when you were describing about it's really good for the uterus and that, and you were saying like, fibroids and that, and because we're doing this with the eclipse of 25th of October 2022, um, which you have Venus conjunct the solar eclipse with the South Node, which is kind of that decrease, and it's ruled by Mars. So really appropriate for this solar eclipse.
You would be surprised on how many stones I have back there, that are very appropriate. I could have
Mhm.
picked another 5. I mean, but this is a good stone. It is, and it's about time that you all got to see it because it is a great stone.
Mhm, mhm. And the reason I made a big song and dance about what Donna's stone section was connected to which podcast is because I'm thinking about cutting up, going back and cutting up all what you've done with the different stones through the months, and kind of so they've got their own little section too, because I don't have enough work to do apparently.
I say,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting stone. I appreciate your work, but
Oh no, no, no. I was making fun of myself because I'm a Capricorn ascendant. Kind of like, yes, let's make more work.
but you need to take care of yourself too. So
Hmm, hmm.
anyway,
Yes. Well, shall we do the transits between this solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse? So this is the chart again for the solar eclipse of the 25th of October. And following that,
right on the 26th, we have Mercury is going to trine Mars, and we talked about this, that this was a close aspect during the eclipse.
yes.
Um,
Mm.
yeah, this is indicative of war or unkind words.
I think this can be a
Oh,
little bit more positive. I think this can be like, if this was a square, I would say fighting words like, um, that's a really, I'm kind of thinking tired, but it's just a slow Mars. But I think this is kind of like, yep, you had the idea, you're actually going to do something about it. But because that Mars is so close to retrograding, so might have some great ideas, actually want to put them into some sort of plan of attack, but you're probably going to have to revise those. And if you don't revise them, it might be a case of you keep coming up against obstacles. You want to do this, but you can't because these people aren't, able to do whatever, or, you don't have permission or approval or whatever to do it.
I'm trying to think of of what you could use.
as a positive
Yeah.
manifestation of it.
Well, before it's still going forward,
Mm,
not really as strong, but you could also use it for with Mars in Gemini, you could also use it to drive an idea.
mm. Yeah, it's an idea. And interesting that this Mars is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury feels like it's kind of got a bit of an obligation to Mars because Mars is hanging out in the house that belongs to Mercury. So,
And Mercury is in charge of how we communicate and how we the processes of how we do things.
mm.
So
Yeah.
positive spin.
Well, if it's something that doesn't need, like a month worth of battle plans and that, if it's just kind of like something that can be done in a couple of days, yeah, maybe it could be achievable. I would still think, though, probably not as fast as you think it's going to be, though, simply because Mars will be down to 11% of its usual speed by that time. It's really, really slow.
And out of the fire and into the frying pan, we have Mercury squaring Pluto
Oh my, yeah.
on the
Mm,
27th. And Mercury is that how we communicate and how we process, to make a sandwich. You get the bread, you have the, you know,
fillings, yeah.
whatever you put on it. And then that Pluto is let's change it up. So if you were planning on having peanut butter, it might be tuna. So it's just that change
Mm, mm.
is what we'll see. If we normally do a if we normally have our things a certain way, this Pluto is wanting to say, hey, you need to change it up. And Mercury with that square causes an action. It causes that tension to, give.
Yeah, yeah.
Transformational, obviously, that's the key word for Pluto. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but the fact that it's a square, it's kind of like probably not a very enjoyable transformation. You might be grateful once you're through the other side of it, but yeah, might be quite difficult going through it. Um, it is getting that, it's still receiving that trine from Mars, so I don't know. Uncovering hidden things, perhaps. Actually, I don't know how much you hear about Australia over there, but it's crazy. We're still actually, when do we come out? This is actually past, we should be past the Mercury shadow period. I think it finishes around about the 20th of October, and we're recording this on the 18th. But we've had so many hacks and release of data from telecommunication companies down here. Like we've got quite a few, but there's two major ones. And one, released, had data released on, people have to replace passports or driver's licenses. Then there was a big, you would call it a HMO, but like a private medical insurance company had a whole heap of data released. Then one of our big, like in Australia, we've got we've got little kind of stores and that, but the two big grocery stores, there's two big major ones, and one of those, some processing through that kind of for a rewards card from that, kind of all this data got released. I think ASIO, which is like our secret service type guys down here, there was data released on that. It's just like
oh my gosh.
crazy. Yeah, it's just a tsunami of information being released in an underhanded way. With the first one, the big telco, some data, they took a small portion of it because they were trying to blackmail the company. They released it on the dark web, which is very Plutonian. Yeah. So I'll be interested to see if this actually manifests as anything within Australia to do with that sort of thing. But yeah, could be release of hidden information. secret information coming to light, perhaps, because you got that underground plutonic energy. The square could be documents being revealed that could be potentially put people's lives in danger, you know, in the case of like these spies that we have. Yeah, so it will be interesting to see if anything comes to light at that time. Within the last month, it's just been like bang, 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 bang. And I should go back and actually have a look at the times that it happened, because I think it wasn't during the actual physical Mercury retrograde period. I think it was afterwards, still within that shadow period. But personally, that's what I've found sometimes. Sometimes, you know, the shadow period can almost seem worse than if it happened in the actual retrograde phase. So yeah, but we should be well beyond the retrograde shadow period, but maybe something comes to light about the hackers at that time, or, you know, something like that.
Sure. That makes perfect sense with that. Squared of, you know, between Mercury, how we communicate, and Pluto, what we want to keep hidden.
And yeah, like, you know, it's just like, oh, what next? It's just
Oh,
crazy.
no kidding. That'll be exciting when Mercury actually goes onto Pluto.
Oh, actually, that will be interesting. I wonder when that will be. I
Mm.
wonder if that'll be around about
Wonder when that
September.
will be
Oh my.
doing. That will be, yeah, it will be very interesting to see when that happens. But keeping on with the script, the next day on the 28th, a day we've been waiting for, is when Jupiter goes into Pisces. It's in retrograde, so it's not
It's not as benefic as it
predictably
could be.
acting.
Mm, mm,
It's not a predictably acting Jupiter as it should be.
mm,
But it is still its own sign, and it's Jupiter acts noble. Jupiter acts judicial.
mhm,
Jupiter acts worldly. Jupiter acts, you know, big, you know,
mm.
expansive and inclusive, and all that. Well, that's more inclusive, is more Venus. But so when Jupiter is retrograde, it doesn't have those, it doesn't want to do those. It's more of a greedy kind of a planet. It's more of a narrow-minded planet. It's more of a um it just doesn't have that exuberant, you know,
Optimism and that.
when we talk about Jupiter, we go, oh, it's the big, you know, benefic.
Mm.
So it just doesn't have that with being in that retrograde state. So, but that's going to happen on the 28th. So if you see a shift anytime a planet moves into a new sign, um you know, it's always a good day to journal, because they are impactful when they go from one thing to another.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a little bit worried about this, personally in Australia, because we had a lot of floods earlier this year. And currently at the moment, where I am, I'm up in Queensland, and we're doing okay at the moment, touch wood, but we're expecting a lot of rain over the next 2 weeks. And down south, there's places that are suffering from flooding and all that. And this is just crazy. We've had so much water and flooding this year. And I just worry with this coming back, Jupiter expansion coming up close, not super close, but close to that Neptune. It's just like, oh, are we going to go through this all over again? It's just like we're going to be waterlogged. And you were talking about already snow up in parts of above you.
Northern Michigan, yeah.
Mm. Which, you know, snow's just kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's something to do with water. It's, would you call it crystallized? Frozen water, I suppose.
It is a crystallized water.
Yeah. See, I've never really seen snow, so I don't know. I've seen it from a distance, but never touched it, never done anything like that.
Yeah, it's a very it's a medium that you have to get used to. Driving, walking, all those things.
Hmm.
Dressing. I mean, you have to dress for it. It's
Mm.
definitely a change.
Yes.
But yeah, with that going into Pisces, you know, Pisces is that water sign and Jupiter is that big.
Mm.
So if when Jupiter is not, if it's really not wanting to act, you know, positively, a lot of water is what could happen.
Yeah. And combining with that Neptune, which, it doesn't kind of recognize boundaries, and it's just kind of really just kind of foggy, and just, yeah, you can't see, which, again, is pretty concerning, because I mean, like, you get floods and people think that they can drive through flooded conditions because they don't see how difficult it is, how bad it is. They think, oh, I can just drive through that. And yeah, we had, quite a few fatalities regarding that. Um, and I know that there was all that terrible stuff over in Florida not long ago for you guys too, and I'm sure other areas. So
Yeah. Hurricane Ian.
mm. So
That was when Jupiter was in Aries,
oh, okay,
which is
destructive.
that
Yeah.
separation and
Mm,
all that. So, but still, that's Jupiter was still in retrograde.
yeah. Yeah. Not behaving itself. Well, shouldn't say that. I mean, it does it every year, so just not behaving as expected.
In the way that we would like Jupiter to behave.
Mm. Yeah, but yeah, it should be interesting once it actually stations direct again, and I'm not sure at what degree that happens. I don't believe it gets back to actually conjoin or conjunct Neptune, but might get back to about 28, I think, and it will station direct. So we'll have a little bit of that positivity, that positive expression of Jupiter in Pisces for the last time. It will leave Pisces and it won't be back for another 12 years. So wherever Pisces is in your natal chart, yeah, this is possibly, last chance for that, kind of really get that good luck planet on your side. But it's retrograde until I'm not sure what date, but yeah.
It'll be nice. While it's retrograde, it doesn't, Jupiter won't act as it normally does, but when it does go forward, it should act a little better.
Yeah. And because it will have stationed, because when planets change direction, we say they station direct or they station retrograde. What we're talking about is like they appear to be stationary. So they're really, really slow at that time. So that's one good thing, that at least it will be going slow. So we'll get to experience it a little bit longer. If it usually takes X amount of time, it will take X amount of time plus whatever. My Mercury in Pisces again.
I was just looking at that Jupiter sitting next to Neptune. Neptune is in charge of gases,
Oh,
and it's squaring Mars. When so you say like we get to enjoy it, I'm like, I sure hope we don't have a lot to enjoy because
mm.
I seem to have air on my mind. These
Yeah,
air and water are very similar, and those, a square could lead to you know, an unpleasant manifestation as far as those people who are can alter our air,
yeah, that is concerning.
especially during wartime. And this
Mm,
is just October 28th, so that isn't even close to when Mars is going to station, but
mm.
it's
Mars is
it's
going to
not too
station
far
two
off.
days later, so yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
one of those, things I was because because Venus is has introduced us into that air,
Mm,
that air um era.
mm, mm. And then we have Mercury moving into Scorpio the next
We
day.
do. And as I always said, journal when a planet goes into a new sign, because that sign boundary is basically saying like, I'm always doing things this way and now I'm doing it this way. It's just literally you go from an air sign that it was in, and it's going into a water sign. It's literally like, making a splash. It like, you know,
Mm. Well, not
it's
only
quite
kind of,
impactful for when they move.
not only going from like, fire to earth, earth to air, air to water, but also, from cardinal to fixed to mutable to cardinal again. So they're all different kind of qualities as well. But, another way of thinking about it too is like if these are houses, and we call them houses, it's kind of like, Mercury was in Libra, which was the house of Venus. Venus, he's hanging out with Venus, being chill and cool and, charming and all that. And now he's in Mars's house, Scorpio. And it's a little bit different there.
Mhm.
So,
Ah, the chairs are not as cushy.
no.
A little bit pricklier. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very Spartan, perhaps. Or well, actually, that'd be more Saturn, but yeah. Yeah, I'm just getting military school. But also, Mercury's going to be under the beams at this time. It's going to be combust, and it's not in its own sign, so it doesn't get to be protected and in its chariot. Um, and Venus is also under the beams because she will have moved away from her Cazimi, and she's not in her own sign anymore. So yeah, both Mercury and Venus won't be visible because the sun's too bright, too dazzling. So yeah, which kind of suits, I think, Scorpio. Mercury and Scorpio, I kind of think spies and, you know, stalking and yeah, good for covert operations.
Yeah, I think Venus will be okay and able to, um, yeah, because she's going to be in her own terms,
Oh, okay.
which may be that help that we need.
Hmm.
It's not her sign, but it's in her own terms, and so she has a little bit more agency than she does anywhere else in that sign.
Hmm.
So hopefully, that's our bright spot.
Yeah, it
Is
looks
those two
like
degrees.
just having a look. Yeah, so looks like she'll have a couple of days there. So from the 23rd she'll be in her terms, but that is still
Yeah.
uh in the Kazemi.
She'll be in her terms when she gets to 6 degrees,
Oh, well, what was I seeing there? Okay,
maybe even seven,
detriment. Yeah. So when did
maybe even
she?
7 degrees.
Yeah. So from the 4th of November. Okay. No, that doesn't seem right. Oh, it's just because there's so many planets in there that she's. Why is that?
Swooped all the way. She looks like she's at 30 degrees of
I
Scorpio, and she's not.
know.
She's only in the middle of the sign. Yeah. She's in Mercury's terms there.
Yeah. But she's showing up as term here in
Or
the.
Mercury will be in her terms.
Yeah, I suppose that's
Maybe
the
they could have a little bit of mutual reception going on.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, a bit of covert action. Be good for that sort of thing. Behind the scenes work, investigation.
But still journal, because
Oh
the
yeah.
planet moves into a new sign. It's going to have something to do with the how we communicate, how we do our commerce, how we do, the processes of the whole
Hmm.
whatever we're working on. That's what Mercury rules. So when that changes signs, you'll notice that something in those themes will change as well.
Yeah. And depending where Scorpio is in your chart, it will kind of that area will you'll be possibly thinking or communicating with people or topics associated with that house more. But because currently it's when it first enters, it's under the beams, it's combust. So you might feel that people aren't kind of really listening to you. So if that's the case, kind of, persist, because, Mercury's it's going to have that cazimi when it gets within 1 degree. So it will have a chance there to be in the king's throne room before the king. And then, it needs to get 15 degrees away from it again, which by that time, it might be getting close to being in Sagittarius, which will actually be in detriment. So I kind of like Jupiter ruled Mercury, so that's just me. I'm a little bit biased.
Well, yeah, anytime I would too. I would like that as well.
But yeah, I just good for undercover, investigative. You might find though that maybe people associated with Scorpio house in your chart, maybe they don't seem to be listening to you, or yeah, or maybe communications are kind of somewhat hindered. I know a lot of people with this in a natal chart, like Mercury kind of combust, and that the sun, they kind of feel like, oh, this person doesn't talk to me or doesn't hear me, or,
Yeah, it's a
interesting.
difficult spot for Mercury, but Mercury is usually spends a lot of time very close to the sun because it can't get too far from the sun.
Yeah, yeah,
It's an inner planet between us and the sun, so it's kind of
yeah,
stays and hangs around the sun all the time.
yeah. It's never more than, I think, 28 degrees from the sun. So,
Right.
oh, and that's what I
We're
think so
used to it.
too. Yes, exactly. Because Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year, and it's kind of meeting up with this. So it could be meeting up with the sun 6 times a year, because I mean, Mercury's coming up to its superior conjunction, which is when it's conjoining the sun when it's direct, but it will also have an inferior conjunction when it's retrograde. So if you have approximately 3 retrogrades every 13 months or so, that's about 6 conjunctions with the sun every 13 months or so. That's more than any of the other planets get. So it's yeah, and it's usually a fast moving, and it's a trickster. It can dodge and weave, and yeah, he's quite agile. So
Yeah, very nice. And are we ready to move on to the next aspect?
yes, the big one.
Mars is stationing retrograde.
Hmm.
And we've been looking at this for a couple of months, knowing
Yeah.
this is coming to us. This is Mars going to be very impactful on its agenda of what it's trying to set out to do in Gemini, because it's spending its entire retrograde period, the shadow period and the retrograde period in Gemini. So if this is in a house that's important for you, this is where you're feeling it the most.
Mm.
And this is going to bring possible weakness, uh lack of energy.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Mars wants to go forward. Mars is action and drive, and Mars is fast and hasty, and you know can be violent and all that, but it's got to go. It's like, no, we can't do that. We've got to go back and do this first. And Mars isn't you know you, impatient kind of martial type people. They kind of want to just do it, and it's like, no, 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 come back and do this. You can imagine how well that goes down. So
and Mars is when it's in a detriment or a if it's down a peg and it isn't the full force of Mars can actually manifest to being a very um good planet to get things done.
mm,
When it is retrograde, it it does it goes on, it walks down the darker side of the street. Um, so it's brutality. It's those um it's not the more positive, it's not walking in the positive light. It's more in the shadows, and not by shadow retrograde. It's more in the, it manifests darkly. It's not the positive things that we can see from Mars. And Mars can have some positive aspects to it, but when it's in retrograde, they're very, very, very few and far between.
Hmm. I think this can lead to a lot of frustration, plans, things you want to do with regard to whatever house Gemini is in your natal chart. There's going to be frustrations and just setbacks, and it's just like, two steps forward, one step back. Sometimes it's going to feel like one step forward and two steps back. Tempers may be frayed, but it's just got to be done. There's no getting away from it. And sometimes you want to rush ahead and do something, and you're all excited and you're kind of like, yes, yes, come on, just let me at it. But sometimes actually taking that time out, being forced or made to go back and review and reanalyze different things, you can actually come out with a better plan. So
Knowing the energy is on its way, you can hopefully manage it, and don't make plans to, I don't know, what would you use Mars for? For your drive. If it's a sensitive area to get something to go, might not be a good time to do at the end of October.
yeah, I was thinking we should possibly do something on what you can expect for Mars retrograde in Gemini through the houses. But yeah, like, okay, for example, it's in my sixth house and Mars is cutting. So quite often associated with surgeons. Maybe you have surgery planned, but for whatever reason, there's delays, somebody gets COVID, the doctor gets COVID, or this happens or that happens. Maybe it's put aside for whatever reason, there might be setbacks. It just depends what house it's in. Like 10th house, that could be, actual, physical energy and drive, depending on what your career is. If you're somebody that does something very physical, if you're an athlete or you're, what do they call it, labor hire, very physical jobs, maybe you actually suffer an injury at this time, which means that you actually can't perform your job. If it's I'm going to stay away from the second house because I know that's where Donna's got it going through her second house. But like, whichever area, Mars can be physical energy, but actually kind of putting energy into something that's, I'm going to say paper-based, like, which is more Mercury. But I mean, if your job requires you to, say, for example, what we're doing here, it's all very quite mercurial because we're on the internet. It's, blogs, it's websites, all that sort of thing. But it's still work, and it's still, you have to have that drive to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it can be fights, it can be violence, it can be all those things, but yeah, it can just be pure
Absolutely.
energy. That's why
Yeah.
I think of Mars, it's kind of pure energy and ambition and drive. I actually have Mars retrograde in my natal chart, and you know, it's kind of like they say with it natally, it's kind of internalized. You're not kind of fighting with everybody else. Mind you, I do that, but but it's kind of like you're probably your biggest battle is kind of almost,
Within,
yeah,
it's
and
it's impulsive. Mars is in retrograde is more impulsive than it usually is.
I
And
believe that.
and when you're acting in a rash and
Mm. Well, I was thinking, motivating yourself, and it depends what planets, what sign it's into, how that's going to manifest, and whether it's in good condition or bad condition. But it's kind of like I personally feel, for me, that Mars retrograde is kind of like I should be pushing myself a lot more, but there's kind of almost a reticence occasionally.
Oh, a stuckness.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of like it's just different. But I mean, it's all I've known, so perhaps not as assertive or whatever. But some people would say you have no problem with that.
Oh,
You push me, you'll find out.
yeah,
But yeah, it's kind of like I kind of think of it, it's just not working at full capacity, sort of thing.
that sounds very reasonable.
Mm. But it might be a little bit different with the transits. I'm going to read up on that. I've got a book by, I think it's Erin Sullivan, about the retrograde planets, and see what she has to say about it.
Oh, very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Mars is happening in my second house. I'll spill the beans. And it's really busy. It's just there's a lot going on. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made as far as money and finances and things that I value are changing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Mars has done for me so far. It's very busy.
Mm.
Just busy, just like a lot going on.
Yeah. And that might actually slow down, or it might not slow down, but you might not be able to make the advances that you want as quickly as you want. You want to do this, and it's kind of like, well, no, you know, not yet.
Yeah. Yep, I think I'm definitely already starting to feel that. Maybe just because it's slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is. It's getting really slow. So, and speaking of which, after Mars stations retrograde, it's like the whole everything kind of slows down because we don't have another major aspects between the planets. I mean, there's obviously going to be the moon making aspects to other planets, but we don't have another aspect between the other planets until the 5th, which is crazy. That's
Yeah.
like 6 days.
Yeah.
And that's going to be
Yeah.
Venus.
And yeah, it's going to be Venus is going to be opposing Uranus,
Yeah.
which is really good if for artistic talents. That's that new, wild idea, and you've got the opposition with Venus
Hmm.
could give you inspiration, you know, maybe a new way of doing an art project.
Yeah, interesting. That North Node with Uranus kind of, amping up that eccentric, revolutionary, unusual energy.
I think that could be a nice aspect.
Maybe kind of a little bit hidden too, because I mean, that Venus is going to be under the beams again and bust. Yeah, maybe particularly if it's a artistic project that you're kind of working on behind the scenes, might not necessarily be ready to be released or seen by others as yet, but maybe this is kind of the time that inspiration hits. For relationships, this could be, it's, they say opposites attract, but yeah, it's a challenge here. It's the unusual, different. It's kind of like it's not our usual taste. Um, Interesting that Uranus is in Taurus, so it's ruled by Venus. So Venus feels like it has some obligation to look
Yes.
after Uranus. But Venus isn't in the best condition herself. She's kind of exhausted. And yeah. And Uranus is hanging out at her house and causing all sorts of drama.
Yeah.
Can be exciting drama and fun drama, but if you got someone hanging out at your house and they're just a bit too much. So could be some strained nerves, could be challenging to some people's values because Venus is our values as well. But yeah, it could be interesting. But it is benefic, Venus, not in the best. Some people consider like the outer planets to be a little bit more malefic, and you've got that amped up with that North Node. I don't think it's going to be horribly like, oh my God, but it's just, relationships might be a little bit testy. Maybe your partner kind of does something a little bit unusual and you're like, where did that come from? And I don't think I like that. I don't think I feel comfortable with that. So, yeah. And then we've got 2 days later, we've got Venus square.
Or Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is as we have mentioned before, Saturn and Saturn is the rules and the older person. Venus is the young person and love and wanting to do that nurturing, and that square could be duty, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's challenging. It's a little bit tense. It's kind of like the obligations, within our relationships. That's not the fun part sometimes. And it's, you know, people talk about marriage and, like the partner, the ball and chain, like, or yeah, being tied down, getting married, getting tied down. And a lot of it is joking in that, but like this is kind of like the flip side of like, oh, companionship and this and that. This is kind of like, yeah, it comes with this as well though. So, and maybe this is just a time where it's a little bit more of a struggle to kind of accept that trade-off. Or it could be relationships with people with the age difference. So yeah.
This seems to me an aspect of elopement.
Oh, interesting.
You have the Venus opposing Uranus, which is shocking, new, independence,
Mm-hmm.
and the square, and because they're all in that, that T
Yeah,
square.
interesting.
That Saturn is right at the crux of where those two meet. It could be, getting married under a Venus Saturn is beneficial. It provides that foundation as
Even with it as a square.
yeah, it's action.
Cool. Mhm. I know with T squares, sometimes they say you look to the other side of the top of the T square to see how you release it, which is at Leo. So perhaps looking at where all this drama is going on in your chart, if you can find where Leo is in your chart, that might actually give some answer to how you can kind of actually release that energy. So in this chart for our Aries rising, you've got Venus across the second and eighth house. So this could be related to finances, yours versus ours, or yours versus your partner's. You've got the 11th house, which is hopes and dreams and groups and friends and what we do for fun with others, as opposed to the fifth house, which is kind of a more personal, what you do for fun. And the Saturn is kind of like, no, Saturn's, they say planet of no, it's rules, regulations. So what's happening? How are we getting out of that? We're getting out of that through the fifth house of fun, creativity. Okay, I can't do that with my friends, but we can chill at home and do this. Maybe that's the way to kind of mitigate that somehow.
Yeah, use
And
that
I
energy
mean,
that's there.
it will be different for everybody depending on where it is, where all these planets are in your chart. But if you're kind of experiencing this relationship, art, beauty, women, kind of drama with this unusual, sudden upsets, revolutionary, the completely different, and you kind of got this area kind of all being squared by no, no, no. Check out where Leo is in your chart. Maybe that will give you some indication of how you can kind of ease that somewhat.
That's a good point. Because I'm seeing how that will line up in my chart. So do it on your own charts and find out,
Oh, let me
where
think.
all those houses are, where it's basically where the fixed houses are hitting.
So for Donna as a Taurus ascendant, it will be over your personal chart. So like Uranus in the first. So Donna's acting a bit eccentric and unusual, and she's kind of, revolutionary. That might cause some issues in relationships with partner. 10th house, maybe might even kind of, what would people think? Because, the 10th house is public reputation, and Saturn's there kind of saying, oh, what would the neighbors think? So maybe it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm still going to do this, but I'm going to chill at home and do it, or, something similar.
Right. Right. Because that Venus or the Leo is where my lineage is from. So it's the family home.
Yeah, yeah.
So so I'm seeing a trip, what I'm known for, and manifesting or going on that fourth house topic. That stuff, that would be nice.
Yeah, so
So that you could work it out that way nice, because it could be a trip that would include some shocking things, maybe some leveling up things.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a very familiar chart. I think I've got Venus and Mercury and the Sun in that seventh house nailing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
see,
this is basically my chart almost. No. Oh yeah,
but
it is. Look at even Jupiter's in the 11th. All right, I'm just gonna.
but this
I
is
don't
it.
have anything in the 12th though.
And see, because Donna does have Venus and Mercury and well, you don't have the sun in oh yes, you do.
I do.
Yeah, you
Oh
do
yes, I
too.
do.
So what date? 6? Yeah, so we're not that far out from your birthday. So all this going on, if you're kind of born in March, but you're like, well, my kids, the twins, they're born in March. They're a Taurus ascendant. It's going to be completely different. They've kind of got like a lot of Pisces in their stuff. But yeah, for Donna, particularly since her 7th house is kind of strongly aspected, she's already got Saturn up in the 10th.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that you got Mars in the 4th. So for you, actually putting that energy into 4th house matters
The
might
family home
actually
is the way to alleviate that T
T-square.
square.
Mm.
Yeah. Enough
Wow.
about me.
Yeah. Venus square Saturn. But yeah, this could be a time when we're really feeling confined by some relationships.
Yeah.
There's not that excitement that we're wanting in a committed relationship. But there's stability there, and it's only temporary.
Very interesting. That should be a very interesting day. Not
It
to
should,
be outdone, not to be outdone by the following day.
yes, I got rid of it too quickly. And here is the lunar eclipse on the 8th of November with the moon, the lunar eclipse, or full moon at 16 degrees of Taurus and conjunct Uranus. So this is sudden endings. This is sudden culminations. So yeah, actually that particularly Venus, Uranus, Saturn, yeah, I think a lot of relationships are going to give. It's just this lunar eclipse is just going to kind of really push the matter. Some people say that lunar eclipses can kind of eclipse things or people out of your life. So just with that Uranus there, it's sudden, quick.
This will be happening on the United States voting election day.
Mm.
So this is definitely a transit day to watch. With all of these things going on, you've got Uranus opposing the sun.
Mm-hmm.
You've got what else do you have? Oh, you have also Mercury is going to be Cazimi that day.
Yes, it will be. Even by medieval techniques. Yeah.
Well, that's at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it'll move into a Cazimi, into a 0, 0, it's not going to be a distance, it's going to be Cazimi. And that's good for meditating. So if you have an idea, if you want to manifest something in your life, go back to this chrysanthemum stone.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing as how it's considered a lucky stone or a stone of, to manifest your dreams,
Yeah.
this would be a day to grab that stone, sit down and meditate with it.
Well, yeah, I'm just
When
thinking
Mercury,
you were saying about the US chart, well, not the US chart, but the election, because in mundane
oh yeah,
astrology, the moon is the public. So yeah, the public unlikely to act as maybe the pundits expect.
right. And if you were to put this chart up against the Sibley chart,
Mm-hmm.
that the United States ascendant is actually in Sagittarius, which is going to put
Mm.
that the lunar eclipse,
In
the
the 12th.
lunar, so the
Oh no,
moon
the
is
6th.
actually going to be in the sixth house.
Mm.
And all of that sun and Venus and Mercury are all going to be in the 12th house, according to the Sibley chart.
Mm.
So that's where that lunar eclipse is going to ride, is the 12th and the 6th axis. And for a voting day, it could be the things that could be our undoing. It could also be service
I'm a little
in the
bit
sixth
worried
house.
that perhaps with that moon and Uranus and people turning out for voting, because you don't have, well, I don't know. I know there was a big deal made about postal votes. I assume you do have postal votes for some things, but I mean, obviously, your last election, there was so many people out because of COVID, whereas this time I assume they won't have that option. Yeah, I just hope this doesn't lead to like another spike in COVID cases or something.
I hope not. I know here in Michigan you can mail in your vote.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't know what it is state to state, but
Yeah,
and what
yeah,
the ramifications are, how long you can. But yeah, it
yeah,
should be a very interesting day with that lunar eclipse hitting the United States chart on the 12th 6 axis, which is undoing and service.
yeah.
Yeah, with the Mercury going into Cazimi with the sun,
Yeah,
all
that's
on the
interesting.
day that the sun is also going to be opposing Uranus, which is that shock, that
Mm,
Uranus brings that shock value to um this day. So it should be a very interesting day
yeah,
for uh for our elections, for certain. Hands down. You don't need to pick up a newspaper to know that. You can just pick up this chart and know that.
yeah.
So, Lynda, what are you doing? Where can people get a hold of you?
I'm at Scullywag Astrology. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all sorts of places. And I'm offering readings, natal readings, year ahead readings, and romantic compatibility readings. And what about you, Donna?
You can get me at donnabastrology.com. I am offering natal readings, year ahead readings, horary readings, as well as crystal therapy.
Crystals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, well, thank you for listening, everyone. If you found this really quite, like, oh, I want to know more, don't forget there are solar eclipse and lunar eclipse videos that we did that we'll put the links to, and we'll probably, if you're watching on YouTube, there'll be links to those as well. Yeah, there's just a lot going on. Kind of a very, between the two eclipses, it's an erratic time. It's kind of, some people can get really kind of amped up, even from, like, I think the full moon in Aries, I've had trouble sleeping, and it's just a jumpy energy. And, particularly if it's kind of, aspecting planet chart points or planets, you might find yourself just a little bit more jittery, particularly with that lunar one with Uranus so close to that lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Mm.
That'll make you jump.
But
Hopefully not too
yeah.
much. Hopefully you'll be expecting it because you knew it was coming.
Yeah. And like we said, if you've got some, stories or, experiences that you'd like to share about how this eclipse season is impacting you and how you're kind of seeing it manifest, we'd love to hear about it. So feel free to drop a comment and, yeah, like or comment or share.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. As Lynda was saying, share, like, if you found value in this.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
comment.
Yeah, and comments. We like comments. We're getting some comments and we really like it. Thank you.
We like interaction.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.